And I'm just going to check that you can see my screen. Can somebody just pop it in the chat? A little thumbs up just to make sure you can see this. And I'm definitely not blurry, am I? Because I'm getting, thanks, Alia. I'm getting a little notification saying my internet is unstable. Oh, at the last few. Cool. So we will get straight into it, guys. So, first question. So, does eating later in the evening impact weight loss? Funny thing is, I get asked this quite a lot. And I know that if we are from a background of commercial dieting or for whatever reason, we all think that eating later in the evening is bad or it's bad for us. Now, the funny thing is, if you actually think about it logistically, there's no reason by the time that you eat your calories and the effect of weight loss or fat loss as such, because it doesn't get to 9 p.m. in the evening and suddenly that 300 calorie snack is suddenly 600 calories. Like, ultimately, it's the amount of calories that we are consuming. So, the short answer is no, like, it doesn't have an impact on weight loss. However, it's more so the kind of psychological impacts of eating late at night. Obviously, when we start eating at night, a lot of the time, while we do feel really, really hungry and we do feel really snacky, is because we're quite relaxed. Relaxed and bored are two of the main things. So you sat watching TV, there's not much distractions, and then you've got a lot more time and a lot more brain space to think about food. This consequently is going to, well, it can lead to overeating, and a lot of people feel like they really, really struggle in the evening with being able to control the amount of calories they're consuming. So what happens is they end up over consuming, and then as a result of eating too many calories, what happens? That impacts our weight loss. So in terms of actually eating a meal late at night, it doesn't have any impact from that perspective. However, managing hunger during the day is really, really important because what a lot of people don't realize is if you're not eating breakfast and you're eating your first meal at say 11 a.m., 12 o'clock midday, you've almost got an energy balance delay, is the only way that I like to call it. So you're delaying that first meal, but that energy balance and that hunger has got to kind of crop up somewhere. And I would feel, I mean, me personally, if I don't eat my first meal quite early on in the day, I get really, really hungry in an evening because it's almost like your body's trying to play catch up of some sort. So that's why I do, if you guys been with me for a while, you'll know that my kind of rule of thumb is try eat within an hour of waking up because it does impact you on later on in the day. Um, Also, the other main impact that it can impact and why I don't like clients eating too close to bedtime is the effect it has on sleep. So if you are eating late on, like within like an hour or two of you going to bed, your body is then trying to process and metabolize that food, and then it's also trying to sleep at the same time. So two opposing processes are happening. So that's why it can really, really impact sleep because your heart rate's going to be increased, body temperature is going to be increased, and that is the last thing that you want when you're trying to relax for a good night's sleep. So I don't advise eating really late on in the evening because it does have a massive impact on sleep. Um, there is some studies that your body can be slightly more um less insulin sensitive at night. So it can process food slightly differently, which basically means like how your body's actually going to use those nutrients from the food can be impacted, which I guess in turn can impact the way that your body stores fat. But what I would say is it is so minuscule that it's going to have no like obvious impact on you specifically. So if like you're not losing, if you're not losing fat or you feel like you're not making progress, I wouldn't instantly ever say to a client, oh, well, how late are you eating on an evening? Which unfortunately a lot of coaches would say, but it doesn't actually have that much of a big impact. So would I advise it? No. But also, I also wouldn't advise going to bed super hungry, and you've got to be down to like individual circumstances. For me, like I do eat a meal, like my last meal's around 2 hours before I go to sleep, but my meals are very small and very, very regular. So I know it's going to not have that much of an impact. So uh, I hope that answered your question, Caroline. I'm just having a look at my notes and seeing if I've had anything else. Um, no, yeah, I mean, obviously, when it comes to like leptin and ghrelin, which is the feeling of fullness and the feeling of hunger, that is controlled by your sleep. So, what people kind of get in the pattern of is they're eating late at night, it's affecting the sleep. As a result, they're waking up hungrier the next day, and then they kind of associate that is because they're eating late at night, which isn't the case. It's just that the sleep's been affected by the hormones. So, yeah, I hope that made sense. Kerry, if after a meal I fancy something sweet like chocolate, um, and replacement flakes don't do it for me. Don't worry, Kerry, they don't do it for me either. But a Diet Coke would take that urge away. As a lesser of two evils, so to speak, should I have the chocolate or Diet Coke? I know diet drinks aren't great for you. Yeah, so first thing is if we're looking at the lesser of two evils, now the lesser of two evils would be the Diet Coke because Diet Coke has 0 calories, however, chocolate does. So if we're thinking from a calorie perspective, the lesser of two evils would be the Diet Coke. However, Diet Coke does have a lot of caffeine in it, which a lot of people don't realize as well. So drinking diet drinks late at night it's a stimulant. So it's not something that I'd necessarily advise. Now, diet drinks are a great tool. And I think at the moment, again, in social media with this big like whole food movement and like lack of food, like processed food movement, people are massively scared of like diet drinks when it comes to a weight loss journey. Like Coke Zero like saved me when I was starting on my weight loss journey and I was really struggling with cravings. So there's nothing wrong with having diet drinks. That being said, and like most recently actually when I was reviewing a few diary, there was a client that was having like 3 or 4 a day. Now, that to me is a little bit excessive, and it's mainly because it really disrupts your digestive pattern and your digestive enzymes in your gut. So, yes, are they a great tool? Do you want to overdo them? No. And should be you drinking them late at night? No. So you do want to find something that is going to like hit that sweet spot, but maybe just not drinking it too late at night. I mean, with your evening meal, it will be fine. But also as well, it depends what your relationship is like with eating sweet treats. I've spoke about this quite openly, but for me, I really struggle with portion control. So whereas somebody could maybe just have 4 squares of chocolate and call it a day, I would have to demolish the whole bar no matter how big that bar is. So for me, I can't just portion control 4 squares of chocolate because I know it wouldn't work. So for me, I don't even buy it. But another really good replacement for you, and again, it depends how badly you feel about the fakes, is low calorie ice cream. Because to me, that is like the closest thing that you get into real ice cream. It's very, very low in calories. And if you do ending up eating the whole tub, it might only be 200-300 calories. So it's not going to be that much, that severe. That being said, I think the thing is with most people on an evening is actually rather than trying to find alternatives and smaller portions and things to try and hit the sweet tooth, is actually understanding why we have the sweet tooth in the first place. Because realistically, from a physiology perspective, like we shouldn't be craving sweet things at night because that is when our body is relaxing and getting ready for sleep. So realistically, it shouldn't be needing sugar, it shouldn't be needing carbohydrate. So essentially, it is a trigger and it's psychological, not physical. So for me, I think a lot of the time, if we find out why we're feeling that way, we can we can combat that a lot easier than just constantly trying to like cure. It's like prevention is better than the cure is probably what I'm trying to say. Yeah, not thought about low calorie ice cream. Yeah, I mean it's great. I mean, Aldi do their own version and it's like I think it's 250 calories for a full tub, for a full pint and it is still quite sickly, so it's like a great alternative. But in terms of the trigger, like ask yourself like hungry, tired, bored or lonely. Like think of all those like things before you think of the sweet treat. And also like try and stop knee-jerk reactions. I think it's really, really easy, like again, in this day and age, because we have food so accessible, we have a feeling we can get the food, like, and there's literally no time in between. Like, we don't have to hunt for food anymore, which I know sounds really bizarre, but like, we crave something, we can get it. We've got Uber Eats, most people have a shop within like a 5-minute walk. Like, everything is so accessible, and we don't actually give our brain, the time to think. Um, yeah, Sally has put Halo Top is a great calorie ice cream. Yeah, that is actually nicer than the Aldi's version, but it is expensive. So that's like another good alternative for you as well. Um, but like giving yourself like the brain thought to actually think like, am I hungry? Like, what are my thought process rather than just that like knee-jerk reaction, I think is really important. Again, like things like popcorn are great, and popcorn's really high in fiber and it's really high volume as well. So when you do want a snack, I think the worst thing you can do is like go to the fridge, grab something, like grab a little bit, go sit down, because then all you're thinking about is like going to grab some more. And for me, like I used to be grabbing some more and grabbing some more. And psychologically, I wouldn't feel as much guilt because I didn't grab the whole bag or the whole bar of chocolate and sit on the sofa and eat it in one go. I'd just be getting up and keep going back to the fridge. but then the habit loop is the same. So what I like to do now is like if I do want something, and what you can do is have that thing, for example, a small chocolate bar, also have on the side, say for example, 100 grams of berries, and then you could also have a couple of rice cakes and make yourself out like a snack board, like a grazing board, which is relatively low in calories. You're still having your thing, it's still keeping you grazing, but it's stopping you having a little bit of your thing, feeling restricted and going getting more of that same high calorie thing. So that used to help me a lot as well, like having like your snack plates and your snack board, so you're having more volume. Um, Another great thing is like utilizing like cups of tea. Like obviously I'd say that because I'm Yorkshire, but like sweet teas, herbal teas, cups of tea, like hot chocolate as well. Another method that I used to use is the options hot chocolate. Now, if you can, buy the sachets, don't buy the sachets that obviously work out more expensive, but buy the sachets, not the tub, because it's pre-portion controlled. But I think the options hot chocolate are around 60 cals. So if you have like a small chocolate and an options hot chocolate, that is quite a sickly combination and it's still keeping it quite low calorie. So it's kind of hitting that sweet tooth as and when that you need it. And again, it's not fake. When I've had clients on hot seats who have made like massive transformations, pretty much all of them eat something that they like every single day, whether that be like a chocolate or a bag of crisps or whatever. So, you can still have it. Um, but yeah, you've said like a Diet Coke makes you want more sweet things, and to be honest, you're more savoury. But again, just started with Diet Coke, yeah. Um, Nuts pot. I love kids size snack packs to prevent overeating on snacks. Very satisfying. Yeah. So like kids snack packs are great as well. Like having the smaller portions of it, but you know, definitely like like Sam's put options hot chocolate as well. Like having like your snack plates, I think really helps because it gives you that kind of grazing board. Another time is like giving yourself a cut off time period as well. Like, again, not that eating at night has an impact, which we do know, but just say to yourself, right, after 9 p.m., like I'm done, like brush your teeth. Like a lot of the time, psychologically, like brushing your teeth is like the end of the day. So it creates that psychological trigger of, right, that is me done for the day because we've been doing that action already as a child. So that kind of helps. So I hope that helps, Kerry. I hope I've answered your question there. Uh, oh yeah, Carly. Carly says she puts Curly Wurly in the freezer and sucks it to death. Yeah. Yeah. Again, make things last a little bit longer as well. Um, Also as well, like you want to be thinking like, you know, the short term and the long term aspect. So like, short term goal is to stay in control after meals, but the long term goal is to do something that is a lifestyle that you do not feel deprived in. So you have to make sure that whatever you're doing, it's something that you can do for long term because I'll get a lot of the time my clients say, oh, I've not eaten chocolate in 6 weeks or, I've not done this. And like for me, that you're just counting down a binge period, in my opinion. We're not trying to refrain from everything because yeah, it's not sustainable. Jodie, how would we know if we're engaging the right muscles when doing a movement in the gym? Again, this is like not a complicated answer, but there's multiple answers to this. Again, it also depends on the movement. For example, like if you take a lat pull down for you guys that actually train in the gym, like if you think of your lats, like your lats are a muscle like here, like it's almost under your armpit, it's to the side of your back. That muscle for a woman, we are never training on isolation. So even though we're doing things like, carrying the shopping and doing cleaning and, we're never actually isolating a muscle. And what I think a lot of people struggle to understand that feeling mind to muscle connections when you're doing isolation movements takes months and months and months because your body has never been used to using that muscle in isolation on its own. So getting blood to pump to that muscle on its own is very, very difficult. And this is why it is a practice thing and practice does make perfect. Again, like I've done a video on this recently about chest movements. Like no woman is really going to use their chest muscles on a day-to-day basis on isolation. So that's why chest training is really, really important. So what happens a lot of the time, like when you start in the gym or you start lifting weights, it's really, really hard for you to like know whether you're hitting the right muscle because you've never felt that muscle move before on its own, if that makes sense. So it is difficult. So one of the things is obviously feeling the target muscle, which you want to take that with a pinch of salt because I would say it probably took me a year and a half to feel the lat pull down in my lat, which is crazy. But again, I probably wasn't doing it right for a very long time. and it takes a while obviously to perfect it, but you want to feel it's not just like a pump, but it's like a tension or a burn. A couple of things that I like to do, and again, it depends what muscle you're training, is tap the muscle. So for example, if I was doing, let's say a single arm cable row, obviously I'm on the cable machine, I'm like this, I'm pulling that muscle. A lot of the time for women, they're gonna feel it in like the front delt, they're gonna feel it in the shoulder. So what I like to do is like drop my shoulder, and sometimes I'll bring my hand round and I will like prod my lat and tap it. So I'm trying to like build that mind to muscle connection. You can do it a lot with biceps. Like if you're doing a bicep curl, like tap your bicep, and the feeling of you like prodding that muscle, your brain's going to go to that muscle before you lift, just to help with engagement. Um, so that's one way that I like to do it. Another way is um doing like isolation movements before the compound. Now, this again comes client to client. So if you're doing lat pull downs and you're saying to me, Sophie, I just don't feel it in my lats, I might say program you a stiff arm pull down before the lat pull down, which is going to be a lighter accessory movement, which is working the same muscle. So blood flow is going to hit that muscle before then you go into a bigger compound such as a lat pull down. But you guys are not necessarily going to understand a lot of the logistics of my programming. And it's funny actually, because Sally, you said this, you was like, when you watched the training questionnaire, one of the training videos, you was like, oh my God, like it makes sense why you've programmed certain things for me now. Now I've watched that. Because obviously I'm not going to program you guys and get your head all mashed by being like, we've got two light, accessory stiff arm pull downs to cause engagement for this. And, because a lot of clients that I've got are beginners, but we can actually do engagement sets before you do the heavy set. And that's why I say, guys, do not start too heavy on your first set of your movement, because if you're, say, going in for, I don't know, let's just say a bent over barbell row, and your first set's really, really heavy, your shoulders are going to take a lot of the load because you're cold. And then it's going to be really hard for you to engage your back. So that's why for me, for most movements, for the first set, I will do it with zero load or like a very, very light load, just because what I'm trying to do is I'm thinking in my head, right, feel it in your lats, rotate your shoulder blades, like do it really slow, feel that squeeze before I start adding load so my other muscle groups don't take over. But again, this comes with like experience and practice. And that's why I say to you guys sometimes, if you've got 3 sets that are logged in the app, you're free to do like a couple more sets on top of that aren't logged, that are just zero weight. When I obviously I program myself, but I when I program myself, I only actually log 2 working sets, because of the rest of the sets, like I just know from experience, like my set 1, 2, and 3 are all going to be working like warm-up sets, and I don't need to log them because I'm not trying to progressive overload a warm-up set. Yeah, so we only try to progressive overload our top sets, our working sets. Um, Obviously record your form. The best transformations that I create are clients that have consistently sent form videos. It is night and day to the clients that don't send form videos and do send form videos, because I don't think, I mean, apart from a few, pretty much every single movement for clients will need rectifying. I've very rarely had it where a client sent a video and it's been perfect. Also, it teaches you, because sometimes you think, oh yeah, my tempo's on point, my form's on point, and you look at the video and you go, what the hell? I mean, I do it with myself. That's why I film myself consistently, because you do get in bad habits and you do forget your lifts. You want to be thinking things like your tempo. Tempo is so important. Like you guys, I'll be counting 4, 3, 2, 1. That is like you pretty much your standard tempo for your eccentric movement, like no swinging or momentum, things like that. Um, Obviously, mind to muscle connection is really important. When you're doing your movement, don't be thinking, all right, what am I having for my tea? Like, actually visualize that muscle that you're working, and like just visualize it working, and it does have a massive, massive impact. And again, like start with isolation. So, for example, if you're struggling to feel a Romanian deadlift in your glutes, you tell me, and it might be that I put a glute cable kick back in beforehand. Because I think a lot of the time as well, when we think about training programming, people think, well, loads of people say online, do all your compounds first where you've got your most energy, and then do all your accessories. Whereas that's not really logistical, like a lot of the time, because your isolation movements are really great to give you that warm up before your main presses. Like for me, I love doing, like, say, for example, a lateral raise before I do a shoulder press, because it's going to get blood pumping towards my shoulder and prevent injury by just going in with some heavy dumbbells. But again, guys, this comes to communication with me and telling me like what you're struggling and what you can't feel, and then I can adjust your programming. So I hope that made sense, Jodie. And again, guys, like I know I've got a lot of clients on here that are really new to this process, like you're in your first week or two. Like, don't panic, like if a lot of this is going over your head because it will make sense as you go through the learning materials as well. Um, I can't see anybody today. I know like putting your cameras on isn't a I just feel like I feel like I'm on a date with Sally. I could see her and she could see me and that's it. I can't see anyone. I know like some people are getting the kids ready to bed and like cooking and stuff like that, so I do understand. I just feel like it's a black screen. I'm on like blind date and then people start exiting when they get bored of me. Don't worry, Nat. Um Nat, that's like, don't worry, I'm eating. And this is your question, Nat, about eating. What are the chances of that? So how does the time you eat dinner impact you the next day? We've got a lot of late night snackers at the moment, haven't we? A lot of late night eating, which is fine. Had some later dinners due to work last week and unsure if that's contributing to more disturbed sleep or morning weight. So yeah, Nat, it is obviously will be contributing to your disturbed sleep, as I was saying before. Um, the reason being, obviously, like I said, it raises body temperature, and that can really disrupt your melatonin production as well. So like eating later at night can disrupt how much melatonin you're releasing. So trying not to do that to get that obviously good melatonin release, is important. Obviously digestive activity, which I said before, your body's trying to digest food at the same time as relaxing, two opposing processes. Um, Obviously morning weight fluctuations, absolutely. You have a big meal, you are going to weigh heavier on the scale in the morning. It's simply because your food hasn't digested. Also, as well, like I'd say, like it can be quite disruptive to your bowel movements. Like if you're eating like sorry guys, if you're eating, but if you're eating like 2 or 3 hours like later on in the evening, your morning bowel movement's going to be different as well. So that's obviously going to affect again, depending on time, you're weighing yourself in and things like that. Obviously high sodium, high carb meals are going to lead to like water retention as well. Obviously, none of this is true weight gain, so it's actually not fat gain, it's water gain. So it's nothing that you need to be like overly concerned about. But again, like it's mainly because of the sleep, because of it affecting your ghrelin and leptin. Um, and also, if you've eaten late at night, you might not be as hungry in the morning, which is then going to delay your first meal, which is then going to put you back in that loop. So obviously try and keep meals lighter if it's really close to bedtime if possible. Eat slowly and mindfully, try not to eat in front of the TV, things like that. And try and finish dinner like a rule of thumb's like 2 to 3 hours before. Um, Walking massively helps digestion. So if you can, I always say try and move after every single meal. But especially on an evening, like obviously nights are light and things like that, like eat your dinner, go for a lovely walk. It will do absolute wonders for your digestion. But obviously the main important thing is eating. I don't want people, coming in late from work and just feeling like they're going to have to skip a meal because it's late at night. I'll get that question a lot. That is not the case. Again, I coach a lot of shift workers who say, it feels really weird coming home at like 7 a.m. and then eating a meal. Well, yeah, you still need to eat a meal because you've not eaten for 6 hours. So take everything with a pinch of salt. Eating's the most important thing. Um, Question 5. Uh, Again, this is a lot of people's worry at the moment, which is understandable, but I'm going on holiday for 2 weeks and worried I won't be able to go to a gym. How long does it take for progress you've made in the gym to wear off? And does muscle go back to fat? Sorry, Laura, I laughed about this one, but muscle and fat are two completely different compounds. And again, I think it's because of like shit people say online, but you cannot turn muscle into fat. You cannot turn fat into muscle. Muscle and fat are two completely different things, yeah. So a lot of people think that your fat is turning into a muscle, which isn't the case. So muscle cannot go back to fat and fat cannot turn into muscle. What happens is you lose your fat and you gain muscle mass. So obviously that is body recomposition. Now, holidays, you know, are fantastic. And I think a lot of people get really, really stressed out that they're going to go away on holiday and they're going to massively lose a lot of progress. And the main reason why you feel like you're losing a lot of progress is because of the way that you look and feel. And it's usually because you sat around a lot, you're eating high carb, high sodium food, and you're drinking alcohol, which is going to cause a lot of water retention. So you look a lot softer, you don't look as lean. You're very self-aware of your body because you're not wearing a lot of clothes and you're out of routine. So people feel like regress a lot more than they do. Now, for me personally, really controversial, but I don't train on holiday. Like, it's not that, I purposely make an effort not to train, but if there's a gym there and I'm in the mood to, I might go throw a few dumbbells around. But there is absolutely no plan on my holidays to train. I'm not sat there going, right, there might be dumbbells at the gym, there might be this, so I'm going to write out a plan. Absolutely not. Rest is amazing for the body. For me personally, like, I train a lot, like, and my body goes through a lot with the amount of training that I do. That week or that 2 weeks rest, I mean, I don't think I've ever had a 2 week holiday in about 5 years, so I'd absolutely love a 2 week holiday. But that week, say for example, rest does absolute wonders for recovery. It gives your body a full recovery rest. So what I would say is like if you've been really consistent in the gym, having a couple of weeks without the gym is probably going to do you more good than bad. However, if you do want to train, obviously I can program things for a hotel gym, but a lot of people will say to me, "Oh, can you program me like body weight movements and things like that?" And you'll know if you've been coached with me for a long time, I'm really against it because personally, I feel like we all work too hard to be sat doing push-ups in our hotel room on our holidays. Like, you know, do things like going on extra walks, going on some lovely swims. Like, I'll always like find like a pull-up bar or something. Like, there's always seems to be like bars and stuff. So I'll do like a couple of pull-ups or like mess around doing something like that if I come across something. But to be honest, like, you're not going to regress a lot. Like, if you like to train on holiday, which people do, be my guest. But I wouldn't be worrying about doing body weight stuff in a hotel room when, there's much more to see. But if you feel like it, wake up every day and do 20 press ups, be my guest, but don't feel like you have to. Um, Most losses that people feel is, like I said, like less muscle pump and fullness. Like when you're training, you get a muscle pump, so you're going to look like more visibly, athletic. Whereas when you're not training, that doesn't happen. You're going to have a lot more water weight because you're eating more carbs and drinking more alcohol. You're going to feel a little bit less tight, you're going to feel a bit less defined. And a lot of the time, when you come back and you're weighing really heavy on the scale, like that dissipates within like 7 to 10 days because a lot of it is water. The main thing is like your food. Like I would put a lot more emphasis on being more balanced with your food than I would be trying to train. Making sure you've got a source of protein with every meal, like, still having a decent amount of fruit and vegetables because a lot of people come off holiday and get sick, and it's because they've drank a lot of alcohol, which is like lowered their immune response, and they've eaten like shit. So it's not really the holiday, it's then when you come back and you've either caught a cold off the plane or something like that, and then you're sick for 1 to 2 weeks, and then you get really frustrated because now you've not been to the gym for 3 or 4 weeks and you've been feeling really poorly. So I would say it's more so looking after your wellness and trying not to overdrink, well, not to drink too much alcohol, and try and manage your food a little bit better than worried about training your muscles. So yeah, so that would be my advice. Again, like walking a lot, swimming, some really high quality sleep, like still aiming to get a reasonable amount of protein in. When you get back, you are going to feel a little bit off and you are going to feel a little bit weak for your first 2 to 3 workouts, but you will bounce back pretty quickly. Um, to lose muscle, like realistically, to lose muscle, I think I've got it on here actually. I've put a little slide about it. Yeah, cool. This is time off and the risk to your physique. 1 week muscle loss risk is none, may even be a little bit helpful. Deload, like I said. 2 weeks minimal, maintain protein and movements. If you're eating a decent amount of protein and still moving your body, you're going to have minimal difference. 3 to 4 weeks is going to be slight and gradual, more if you're inactive and under eating. And 6+ weeks, it's going to be noticeable, but muscle memory kicks in fast when you return. So when you look at that, like, this isn't me saying, right, guys, let's all have 2 weeks off the gym, or like inconsistency is good, because it's not. But on the grand scheme of things, if you're having a 2 week holiday every year, that's why I don't put a lot of pressure on myself to train. Because realistically, like, I'd just rather have the break. Sorry, I don't know if there was another question in there, but I just missed the chat box. And for whatever reason on Zoom, when I miss it and don't click on it instantly, it it disappears and I can't find it. But if there's a question, just pop a little dot in the chat and it'll pop back up for me. So I hope that answered your question. So, what are the best bodyweight exercises to do on holiday accommodation that doesn't have a gym? It's so funny that these were back to back, but like I have put some examples on here for you. Like I said, like obviously I can program you some workouts to do on the holiday, and I have done this before, but my biggest pet peeve is sitting down, looking at going on booking.com, looking at the hotel that you've got, looking at all the equipment that you've got, like working it all out, writing you a really good split, and then you don't do it. And then you go, oh no, I didn't train on holiday. I just wanted to relax. Yeah, I know. Well, I told you this. Told you this. So like so like, you know, happy to do stuff for you guys, but again, like don't pressure yourself. I've put some stuff here. So like you can take a picture. Obviously, this will be on record so you can watch it back. But these are really, really easy. Like your push-ups, your incline push-ups using a couch or a chair, Superman hold and raises, hand release push-ups. You've got core variations. You've got bodyweight squats. You've got Bulgarian split squats, glute bridges, wall sits. But personally, I would do a little bit of mobility and recovery. Waking up every morning, doing some stretches, doing your hip mobility, you know, doing a yoga session, like, keeping up with your mobility and flexibility and actually thinking, right, well, I've got the time, the mind space, why don't I just do a bit of, why don't I get my flexibility and mobility increased while I'm on holiday? That's something that I like to do as well. But they're just some really, really easy ones that you can do. Um, Question 7. What foods should you weigh raw and what food should you weigh cooked? Does MyFitnessPal have correct quantities for protein, carbs, and fats? So I know that I've spoken to you about a bit of this about this with you on Philippa on your review. And then so obviously like the back end of like the MyFitnessPal having correct quantities. So I'm going to go through like food measuring and food weighing because I know a lot of you guys, you'll know this if you've been with me for a long time, but it can get quite confusing. And one of the biggest reasons why people don't see a result or don't see fat loss is inaccuracy with the tracking. It is like the number one common denominator that I see over everything else. Um, Obviously you should always weigh food raw because it gives you the most accurate representation of that food. And I'm going to kind of show you a couple of examples. But again, look at the packet because, for example, like even like cooked chicken could say like 100 grams is this, but sometimes it's even 100 grams of the raw weight, even though you're buying a packet of cooked chicken. So just double check things. Like it's so stupid. I don't know why they do it, but like look at your food labels. If it's saying cooked weight and you're scanning that label, then obviously you're weighing it in as cooked weight, but it depends on what the label says. Pasta's like a massive problem because some pastas say per dry weight and some pastas say per cooked weight. As a rule of thumb, for your carbohydrates, potatoes, pasta, rice, do not scan the packets of the pasta that you buy in. Pasta is pasta. It doesn't matter if it's straight or shaped like this. The shape of it is irrelevant. The macros are still the same. So all I do for carbohydrates is I just type in dry pasta into MyFitnessPal, and then I weigh out the amount I'm using, dry weight, and then I use that. Yeah, so don't scan the packet of carbohydrates where possible because they're so inaccurate. Well, they can be. Um, if you go on MyFitnessPal, anything with like the green tick, that is like a verified item, so we know it's going to be correct. A lot of the time, and I don't know if you guys have had it before, but like I'll scan a packet of mixed veg and it'll come up as like it's watermelon. Like it'll come up as a completely different ingredient because MyFitnessPal is a public domain. So like it's people just going, oh, I've bought this from Aldi, I'm going to put it into MyFitnessPal. And then everyone puts that item into Aldi and then all of a sudden like the macros are wrong. Um, Sorry, I'm just going to go through these. Uh, Veg and salad available walk-ins. Yeah, Kerry, exactly. Kerry said I found more protein, veg, and salad available when walking and swimming, and yeah, when being away and I only put £2 on. I find holidays really easy to manage because I'm not being funny. I can't be asked buying a watermelon and cutting it up and eating it. Whereas on holiday, I can just live off that. So like, I don't fancy like making fancy salads every day and like, but on holiday, I'm like, oh, I'll have a bit of this, I'll have a bit of that. So I find it really easy to volume eat because there's all this food that I usually can't be asked making that is available. Um, yeah, so Philippa's put if you're cooking multiple meals, how will this work? Yeah, don't worry, like I'll get to this because I know it's hard, like especially if you're cooking for a partner and things like that. When it comes to like weighing things raw. So if you're cooking multiple meals, again, it depends on what meals. If you're talking about meal prep, say for example, like you're doing, say, a chicken pasta and the chicken and the pasta and everything is in there. So how do you know each individual meal has got that amount in, which I understand what you're saying. All I would do in that sense is say have 200 grams of dry pasta and then it's 50 grams of pasta per portion. And when you're scooping it out, yes, some meals might have 55 grams, some might have 45. But in the grand scheme of things, you're eating that meal all week, so your calorie amount is still going to be the same. It's not going to be inaccurate, even if on some days you've eaten slightly higher in calories because there's been a little bit of extra pasta there. Um, Sally's just put, I added all my foods manually into my fitness pal and have now built up a whole bank of foods. Yeah, it's a lot of work initially, but I don't rely on what's already on the app because of inaccuracy. Yeah, I mean, that's a great tip as well. Like that's something that you can do is add it in yourself. The more you use my fitness pal, the easier because obviously it remembers your food. At the start, it is a massive pain in the ass, but like manually adding your own is a great option. If you're cooking for say like other people, like husbands, kids, and things like that, and say you're doing one big pot of rice, like one thing that you can do if you want to be super accurate is cook your carbs separately. I know it sounds like a little bit of a pain in the ass, but ultimately you kind of have to think, well, do I really want to lose fat? And how hard is it going to be to have a separate pan and just weigh out my rice and have the whole family's in another pot? You can do that. I understand people are busy. If you do want to weigh it cooked, you can still weigh it cooked. I'm not saying you can't. You've just got to be aware it's a little bit inaccurate. And I'm going to show you some examples, and it's because of water absorption. So, for example, like if you're saying weighing out, right, I've had 100 grams of cooked pasta. Depending how long you cook that pasta for, this is where people get confused. It might be 40 grams of dry or it might be 60 grams of dry because 40 and 60 grams of dry pasta is a different amount of calories. But you could get 40 grams of dry pasta, 60 grams of dry pasta, and you could make them both be 200 grams of cooked, depending how long you've cooked them for. I hope that's making sense. Whereas the actual calorie amount is completely different. And carbs are obviously high calorie, like rice and pasta is very calorie dense. So there's not a lot of room for error. Whereas potatoes, like you get a lot of volume, so it can be less like calorie dense, if that makes sense. So that's why I say everything raw. And it's not just your carbs, it's like your chicken. The more you cook a chicken, the less it's going to weigh because the more water's evaporating and the smaller it's going to become, which we think it's then got less calories, but the raw weight is always going to be started the same. So when it comes to meal prep and prepping for yourself, there's no reason why everything can't be raw weight. When it comes to family, I understand if you're cooking things in pots and pans and things like that, it is a little bit difficult. But if you, for example, just want to cook your carbs separately, personally, that's what I was doing when I was living at home because I was the main cook for my family and it is a pain in the ass. My partner now, they eat separately to me. Sometimes I've got to cook two meals, pain in the ass, but my goal's more important. But I'm just going to show you a couple of examples, guys. Um, so when you cook proteins, when you cook food, especially proteins and carbs, it loses or absorbs water. So people get confused because they're like, well, the item's the same. Yeah, but it's because you're weighing it after the fact. Yeah. So like if we look at chicken breast, if you're using 100 grams of raw weight, it's going to be around 75 grams of cooked. So it's still 120 calories and 23 grams of protein. If you're weighing out 50 grams of raw weight rice, it's going to be 150 grams of cooked. So it's going to triple in size. And this is where like the pasta and the rice thing and people get confused. It's because like you could, for example, like you might, weigh out your rice, for example, and say, oh, I've had you might weigh out it dry and say, oh, I've had 25 grams of rice, and you've logged that as 25 grams of cooked rice. And this is what happens a lot. And funny thing is, I was actually thought I was in a calorie deficit for like 5 months, and I wasn't because my pasta I was weighing wrong. I was putting it in, well, it was rice actually, sorry. I was putting in that I was eating like 50 grams of cooked rice, but I was actually having 50 grams of raw weight rice, which was 150 grams of cooked rice. So I was putting in that I was having 50 grams of rice. I was having 150 grams of rice. So I was like 400 calories off every single day, which was my deficit. So I was not losing fat and I was so confused. But it was literally this stupidity with the rice. So this is why I bang on about it. So if you weigh food after cooking, the weight varies based on how long you've cooked it, how much water is evaporated, etc., which leads to inaccurate tracking. And you might go, oh, it's only like 30 calories, 40 calories. But when you're thinking you're doing it every meal over weeks, months, years, it does build up. As a rule of thumb, guys, so like just to give you an idea, because sometimes like you're gonna have to weigh your food after you've cooked it. And what I like to do is like just work out what it would have been raw. So like chicken breast, it's around 75%. So cooked equals raw times 0.75. Lean minced beef or steak, 75 again. So it's pretty easy, these like conversions. Salmon, similar. Eggs stays the same, minimal change. Tofu, is pretty much nearly the same as well, very little change. So just to give you an idea. Carbohydrates, this is where it's very, very different. So white rice is like triple, brown rice is like 2.5, pasta is 2.5, oats is around 3, quinoa 2, 2.5, potato 0.75. So roasted or baked. So again, very similar to your meat. So that is just showing you the differences. Fats, peanut butter, weigh it as it is, no water change, just track directly. Olive oil, measure before cooking. Cheese, minimal change. Again, I've seen a lot recently on people's food diaries doing like a teaspoon, tablespoons of things of sauces. I'm just going to reenact this because it's so easy, guys, and I know a lot of you do know it already. But if this is your scale and this is your sauce, you put your sauce on the scale, you set your scale to 0, you squeeze your sauce, you bring the whole bottle back, and the minus number is the amount of sauce you've used. Milliliters and grams are interchangeable. So if you've used 10 milliliters, you can put it in as 10 grams. It's the same. Because I'm getting people a lot of the time, like now, like pouring sauce on spoons or getting like little cups and putting the sauce into a cup to weigh the sauce, and it's getting all complicated. Like even like for example me, I take the tub off the cottage cheese and I put the whole cottage cheese on the scale, put it on, and I weigh it out, because even if you lick the spoon, it doesn't matter because it's weighed out. Yeah, rather than like doing it the other way and then thinking, oh shit, I can't lick the spoon. Because someone said, oh, it's really annoying because I keep having to like wash all my spoons because I can't lick them because of the calories. I'm like, weigh the tub and then you can lick the spoon. Yeah. So like accurate source tracking is so easy, like if you just do it simply. Again, this is like the pasta example. So like if you're cooking your pasta al dente, your cooked weight is 120. It's the actual calories are 200, but you've logged it as 170. Overcooked, soft, it's you've logged it as 200 calories, 140 grams of cooked weight, but you've logged it as 140 grams. Yeah, so even both started from 56 grams of dry pasta, the cooked weights are different, but the calories are the same. That's my argument with what I was saying before. Quick maths, you cooked 200 grams of chicken and didn't weigh it raw, use this formula, estimated raw chicken equals cooked weight, so divided by 0.75. Yeah, so if you've done 200 grams of cooked, it's going to be around 267 grams of raw weight, to give you a point of example. Um, Calorie value per gram of macronutrients, just kind of a reminder. Alcohol is 7, alcohol is a carbohydrate, but your alcohol is 7 calories per gram. Your fats is 9, your carbs is 4, your protein's 4. Yeah. And then why this matters, when reading food labels or using macro-based diet, you can double check the calorie counts by multiplying macros. So the reason you need to know this, and you just need to kind of get in the habit of remembering it, is it should be very, very obvious if you enter in a food on MyFitnessPal and it's the macros aren't right. Because for example, like if you log something, for example, and it comes up as 200 calories, but then it's got like 150 grams of carbohydrates, you should straight away know, well, it can't be right because 150 times 4 is 600, which is 600 calories. So it can't be 200 calories from the macro breakdown. Again, guys, I don't want you to get over worried with this, but like once you start knowing this, you can spot mistakes very easy in your food diary and rectify them. So like you'll spot errors if a label's calories don't match the macros, and it helps you balance your meals if you want more energy from carbs versus fats or protein. So like, for example, a meal with this macro breakdown, this is how I work out your macros, guys. So like I look at your body weight, make sure you got at least a gram of protein per pound. If I know that you're an advanced lifter or blah blah blah, you'll be having more. And then I'll say, right, I've got Sarah, she needs 150 grams of protein as a minimum. So I will get 150 grams and I will times that by 4, which will give me a calorie amount. Then I'll look at your lifestyle and understand how many carbohydrates you eat, and then I'll times that by 4, and then the rest of it is made up with fats, and that brings up your calorie total. Yeah, there's a whole video on my Instagram on how I work out your calories, but that's how you work out your calories. Your calories fit perfectly into your macro breakdown. Yeah, and that's how it's the same with food, exactly the same with food. Like, and this is why on MyFitnessPal we've got percentages, and I work to the 1%. So that's why it's confusing. Like, you've probably all done it when you've joined the Elevate program and you've gone onto MyFitnessPal and like you're trying to like change them dials and they've got to equal 100 and you don't understand why they've got to eat 100 and equal 100. It's because they've got to add up to the calorie amount. So if you haven't got MyFitnessPal Premium, you will only be able to do this to the 5%, whereas I work to the 1%. Kerry said it's a good job you do it. That's all I could say. Yeah, there is calorie counters online, but like if you put your metrics into a calorie counter, I pretty much guarantee the macros that you've been given by the internet won't be the same by what I've given you because they just spit out some real weird numbers. But this is why on MyFitnessPal it's a bit annoying because like when you go into Everfit, like I set your percentages by the 1%, whereas MyFitnessPal will do it by the 5%. So like it's a bit annoying because when you're going to set your goals on there, it won't equal what I've set you exactly. And that's why I say don't use MyFitnessPal as a tool to look at how many calories you've got left on macros. Just look at it as a tracking tool. Use Everfit for that because obviously they're connected. Yeah. Question 8, Holly. How to get back into it after a break or after the rug has been pulled. Yeah, so again, really common. And again, I don't think I've ever had a client that's not had a mental breakdown at some point during the coaching process. So it happens. Um, I think the main thing is like people dwell on it and they sit and they beat themselves up for weeks and weeks and weeks. But realistically, like if you're an emotional eater, or if you rule a lot of your lifestyle on emotions, like you staying in that emotional state for longer is just the absolute worst thing that you can do because you're going to stay within that habit loop. I think the big thing is like just being a little bit compassionate with yourself. Like being hard on ourselves is like the easiest thing to do. And like I know it's easier said than done, but like, I've had plenty of times where like something's happened in my life, in my personal life, and like I haven't been able to get to the gym or like, things happen in our lives all the time. And you just have to have a bit of self-compassion for yourself and like instead of just saying, right, I've ruined all my progress, which or I'm back on the wagon. The amount of weeks I hit, I'm back on it now, I'm back on it this week. Um, I don't know why. Oh, I don't know what's happening here. I don't like that term because I don't want. Oh, I don't know what's happening here. I think Loom's updating. I don't like the term like back on the wagon or like I'm back on it because it gives you that mind frame of like you're either on it or off it. And like going through life is just going through life. Like you should always be on it, like just there's different circumstances. So I always say to myself, well, I needed that time for whatever reason. I needed that time off. Now I'm ready to take care of myself again. Like that's what I prefer rather than I'm back on the wagon. Like I hate that saying. Obviously, your mindset's gonna like reduce it to be less guilt and like lets you move forward without dragging like emotional weight in from the past. Um, Obviously you've probably all heard me say the term of like pick the lowest hanging fruit. So like start with like one non-negotiable to focus on. So if we think of like our main kind of routine, we have a step goal, we have a sleep goal, we have a protein goal, there's a water goal in there. Like just pick one for your first week. So just think, right, well, if I can do, I don't know, if my only thing I do this week is hit my step goal, that's a win. If the only thing I do this week is hit my water, that's a win because people come back into it after like a period off or and then they're like, right, okay, start again Monday, 3 liters of water, 10K steps, 4 gym sessions, mindfulness, sleep routine. And if you've just like not been able to brush your teeth since 11 a.m. all morning because you've been having a mental breakdown, like it's too much for your body to process. So like obviously talk to me for one, because usually what I'll do if like, well, usually I know whether a mental breakdown's going to hit you anyway, but I'll usually say, right, okay, I'm going to delete some of your habits and we're just going to do the basics this week and just pull a little bit of load off you. And then sometimes knowing that somebody else has said that to you gives yourself the allowance, And that's why having a coach is great because it's not like mentally screwing you up. You go like, well, Sophie said, if I'm going to you, look, if all you do this week is do 8K steps and drink your water, I'm going to take your training sessions out so you can't even see them. That's a win. And then usually a lot of the time, like, it makes you feel a lot better as well. Again, ease back into training as standard. Like, don't just even if you go in and move your body, that's a win. Not every session has to be a PB. Again, I struggle with this a little bit myself because I do put a lot of pressure on myself, but sometimes you just got to go in and just going in and doing movement is better than doing nothing. It doesn't always have to be a PB. It doesn't always have to be a highest heart rate. Like you don't always have to hit failure. Obviously, I'm going to say that because a lot of people don't hit failure enough, but like, it doesn't always have to be the case. Um, yeah, and Kerry said exactly that's a great point. You should be proud of yourself for coming back up and not choosing to give up. Absolutely. Like the choice just to like try and reestablish yourself is a big enough win in itself, and that's massively, massively important. Like it's funny, like again, like, sorry, Sally, I'm going to use you another example because I can see you, but like, you was a little bit stressed out about the fact that you were working away on set and like you knew that you wouldn't have full control over your food. And like I said to you, like, just don't track it. Like, I just don't want you to track the food. Like, don't worry about it. And like, it worked out that the meal that you provided was actually a really high protein meal and it sit within your goals. And we spoke about it and said, well, actually, all that stress and anxiety about it for actually for no reason. So like sometimes like if you worry about things like like my mum always says to me, you're worrying twice because sometimes that thing doesn't even happen. And if it does, then you've worried about it before it's happened, so you've stressed about it twice. So again, like sometimes you just got to roll with emotions. Um, and I just think a lot of the time you've got to like always expect yourself not to be perfect. Like expect imperfection. Like I think again with me that I've kind of learned to understand this a lot. Like we're trying to do things 80% of the time, guys, not 100% of the time. And if you look at a whole year, if you look at a whole 12 months and you did things for the whole 12 months and it worked out that if you looked at your metrics, it was around 80% of the time, that would get you a far better result than 1 week of the month you're 100, then you're 20, then you're 40, then you're 100 again, then you're 100 again for a couple of weeks, then you've dropped down to 20. You're just far better off trying to do things 80% of the time rather than trying to be 100% perfect and then falling off completely. Um, and obviously just being just being kind to yourself um is really, really important through this process as well. So hope that made sense. Um, Question 9. So as I go deeper into my deficit, does the type of fat I eat matter if I stay within my macro target? For example, is there a difference on how my body responds to 42 grams of fat from peanut butter, olive oil, and avocados versus shifting more towards avocado and less peanut butter and olive oil? Is this about omega ratios or fat types like saturated? Yeah, so it's a good question. Now, the funny thing is, like, I would never be worried about where your fat sources are coming from as long as they are from whole food. Obviously, you have your fat sources from your things like your peanut butter, your olive oil, your avocados. Like, they're all sources of whole food. Fat from things like pizza and, like, you know, deep fried food and battered food is a completely different type of fat. So I really, really wouldn't get yourself worried about, right, I need to make sure I'm having this big variety of fats because it's going to like differentiate how it works towards my body. No, like the only thing that I do think is really worth everybody prioritizing is having fat from oily fish, like salmon or, tuna, having some type of your fat coming from that, coming from those, because like you said, like your omega 3 and your fatty acids. I do advise that everyone takes an omega 3 supplement, even if they do eat fatty fish, because nobody eats enough fish anyway. So like I supplement with omega 3 because to be honest, like I don't eat a lot of oily fish. Um, I don't really know why I do, but it's mainly because for me, my meal preps, like I just eat a lot of chicken and beef and it's really simple for me. And then occasionally I'll have tuna. So for me, I do always like have omega 3s. But in terms of like ratios, like, I mean, you personally, yourself, Sally, like your fat content is fine. Like you eat a lot of whole fats, which is wonderful. But the reason why we reduce fats when we're going deeper into a deficit is because oh, I've never even looked at that, Holly. I'll have a look into that. If there are any veggie omega 3 supplements. Surely there is. Like they can make fake bacon now. Like surely they can make an omega 3 supplement. I'm gonna have a look at that for you. Um, what was I saying here about the fats? The reason why I lower people's fats as like the first macronutrient to lower when you're going deeper into a deficit is fat is 9 calories per gram, carbohydrates and protein is 4 calories per gram. So it's a lot easier when you're on a calorie deficit to eat low fat because fat is very calorie dense. Like avocados are very calorie dense, whereas potatoes are not calorie dense. So like when you're trying to eat less food in a calorie deficit, it's easier to have more carbohydrates as an option because they're more filling, they're a main source of energy, and they're lower in calories. Whereas fat is very, very calorie dense. So fat is like the first thing to be reduced for me personally and my clients when I'm trying to push them deeper into a deficit. But I don't like to reduce fat too much because obviously fat is responsible for your micronutrients absorption, so like how you absorb micronutrients and your menstrual cycle. Yeah, and that's why a lot of people like who are very low body fat percentage will lose their period. Um, is it more from satiating from a volume point of view to eat fat like eggs and avocado instead of peanut butter because peanut butter is super calorie dense? Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, you still want to be looking at fats in terms of like the volume when it comes to it as well. And that's why personally for me, I will never pour olive oil. And it's because for me that in my head, like that is like that is the quickest way to use up your calories. So that's why for me, I do prefer olive oil over low cal spray. And again, this is hard because I used to promote low cal spray a couple of years ago, but it is full of shit. Like just get your olive oil and pour it into a spray bottle and spray it. Like, you're still only maybe using 10 cals of the funny thing is when you spray natural olive oil, you probably use the same as you would in terms of low cal spray anyway. But for me, I never pour olive oil into a pan because for me, like you said, volume. I prefer my fat. Um, so mainly for me and my clients, what I advise is your fat content coming from things like cottage cheese, um, eggs, your dairy sources, because dairy sources can be pretty high in fat. Um, Avocados, like you said. What I don't like is nuts and seeds and poured olive oil because I don't think either of them are very, very satiating. Peanut butter, again, like that's still okay. And I think peanut butter is one of those things that it gives you that intense sweetness that you don't really get from anywhere else. So I do still really like to incorporate peanut butter. And like obviously like your oily fish and things like that. So yeah, where possible, the only things that I'd probably say don't bother with is olive oil and nuts. And for me personally, butter, but I've never been a butter lover. I'd rather have peanut butter than actual butter because butter is just so, so high in fat. Again, it's not that it's not a healthy source of fat because it is, but for me, it's too calorie dense. I'd rather have more peanut butter on my breakfast rather than just having butter on my toast. I just put cottage cheese on my toast. So it's kind of like you pick your battles type of thing, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Um, but yeah, a lot of the time, like salad dressings, salad toppers, nuts. Yeah, nah, for me personally, no. It's so calorie dense, not worth it. And that's a wrap. I don't know if there's any more questions in here. Um, what's Kerry? Oh yeah, Kerry's put that. Let me just have a look at this omega-3 because that would be fantastic for you, Holly, or any vegetarians. So omega-3, so just to give you the vegetarian options in terms of food, flax seeds, chia seeds, walnut, hemp seeds. So those are really, really rich in omega-3. So you can add those like to your yogurt and things like that and your oats. Also, your green leafy vegetables are rich in omega-3s as well. So those are some options as well. In terms of supplements, let me just double check this for you. Vegetarian omega-3 supplements. Yeah, you can get vegan and vegetarian omega-3. So you can. I mean, Philippa, if you want to pop your questions in the chat and if anybody wants to stay, because the chances are if you've got a question, other people are thinking about it. So you feel free. I mean, you can unmute yourself as well. Like I'll just send this screen share, but if you feel free to unmute yourself, Philippa, and just ask me if you'd like. Or you can just pop it in the chat box if you've got a question.
I'll talk if that's okay. It's quicker. My typing is going to take time.
Fine.
A couple of questions. I hope this is not boring because it's not maybe relevant for everyone.
Yeah.
I have a client dinner on Wednesday and I cannot find the nutrition information online. Should I? What would you suggest in this scenario? Because I have to go. It's clients.
Yeah.
I've ordered my food in advance and I've tried to be as good as possible, but my next step is to contact them and ask for the food and the
Oh
nutrition.
no. Oh
I don't
God.
want to do that.
No, don't be silly. So yeah, obviously you've done the right things. You've tried to get the nutritional information first and you've tracked and you've looked at the meals ahead of time. Obviously, like utilize me. So like a lot of clients will send me menus and go, I'm going out for dinner next week, have a look. And I will give you like first, second, and worst case scenario. Like, so I can always help you out with that food as well. Um, a big thing that I would say is um just because you're going out for the meal and you because of what a lot of people's mindset is right, I'm going to like cut my calories and have really low calories during the day and like save all my calories for that meal. That is one point, but for me personally, I eat before I go out to eat because realistically, do you have to eat and consume all of that food that you're given? No, but obviously it's really hard because as a society, we're always taught to clear our plates and clear our plates. So would it be better for you to like have something to eat so you're not absolutely starving when you get there? You can still enjoy the food, depending what meal it is. If it's something that's going to be really high calorie, you might just leave a little bit. and balance it that way. Tracking it ahead of time, so like putting it into MyFitnessPal, like it's obviously ahead of time anyway, and then you can kind of see what calories you've got left for the week, and maybe you just need to have a little bit less a couple of other days in the week, and it'll still balance out that being in your calorie deficit. But a lot of people who are on this process eat out every week, or they have a lot of client dinners, so we don't want to be thinking, shit, we can't go for a client dinner because whatever you do with me in these next 10 weeks, you have to be able to do for the rest of your life. So that's how we want to be approaching it. Does that help?
Yeah, yeah. I will send you the menu if you
Send me the
want,
menu.
like what
Yeah, I'll do
I
that. Yeah.
chosen.
Yeah. Let me have a look at it.
Okay, perfect. And I had one more.
Yeah.
This is just for me, I think. For this week, I don't have my step goal to put in manually, but I don't have the watch or anything. Do you still see it, or
Um,
how is it working?
how are you tracking your steps at the moment?
I have my phone, but I
Oh,
don't have the
sorry, you
watch.
just mean you just mean as a task.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. I just put it in for the first week because I didn't know whether you were going to get a watch or not, so I didn't want to have it for the whole
Um,
10 weeks. So I was just
okay.
waiting to see if you wanted it, but that's an easy fix. I can do that for you now.
Okay, cool. I think that's it, but I want to ask if I'm doing something correctly, like
Yeah.
how we've been measuring as much as possible by raw, but if we just measure the raw, then cook it and then divide it by four, is that okay? Like with the calories or not?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the same with like meal prep. So like if you're putting what you're best doing is going to MyFitnessPal and you go to my meals, recipes and food, add a recipe. So like you'd say add a recipe, it'd ask you how many portions. You put four, obviously four portions. You put your full total ingredients in, and then that's going to give you the macros per portion. Obviously, we
Okay.
know when we've got like say like a hot pot meal or something that's all mixed in and you're
Mm,
eyeballing it, you can either like get, I mean, you can do this, sometimes I do this, but you can get the tub and put it on the scale and make sure like every portion's 500 grams. But
mm.
realistically, if you eyeball it, the amount of calories that you've eaten in that week are still going to be the same. Yeah, despite one
Okay.
portion being slightly bigger than the other. So don't worry about
Okay.
things like that.
Okay. Okay. Um, I think that's
That's okay. Has anyone
it.
else got any questions? Because obviously now's your time, but if not, it's fine. But I hope that was useful for you all. Thank you so much for your attendance. It'll obviously be on record if anybody wants to go back and have a little look. And yeah, if you anything sparks a question, just pop it. Just message me directly. I know a couple of people have been emailing me recently asking for questions. Like you can message me on the app if you need to. Don't feel like you have to email me because I don't know when I'll reply to you. But have a lovely evening, guys. I'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Bye bye.